Sophie Cunningham was flat out targeted by a dirty player. Can continue to survive these things. Here you see Sophie Cunningham laid out on the floor, holding her knee. The lady was in tears, crying as Lexi Hall approached her to help her.
Immediately, first, look at this. Instantly into the game. Instantly. Immediately. They had a target to hurt Sophie. She was targeted by this team.
This wasn't an accident. Sophie Cunningham's season was just ended by a player with a long and vicious history of dirty plays, and it happened in a game that was already a 17-point blowout. The hit was so brutal that her family immediately went to war with the WNBA online, exposing a league that seems completely unable or unwilling to protect its own stars. This wasn't just another injury, it was a targeted takedown that reveals the dark truth about what's really happening in women's basketball.
Watch out for Bria Hartley because she's a dirty-ass player.
This is Hartley right here coming
she tries
in.
To slide over right there. And Hartley just kind of falls
and she
crushes
in
immediately
on the knee of Sophie right here.
She went down.
Just sums up everything. Like, we weren't going to win this game if Sophie Cunningham was healthy. This isn't like, oh, we lost because of a Sophie Cunningham injury. We were down 17 points when she got injured. This happens.
The play itself was hard to watch. As the Indiana Fever were already getting dismantled by the Connecticut Sun, Bria Hartley drove hard to the basket, but instead of a clean play, she crashed directly into Sophie Cunningham's leg. The collision was brutal and immediate. Sophie went down, her hands instantly grabbing her kneecap as a wave of pain washed over her. You could see it wasn't a simple sprain, this was something far worse. Analysts watching the replay knew it instantly, with many pointing to a likely patella rupture, a catastrophic injury that carries a near 0% chance of returning in the same season. In a split second, the Fever's toughest player, the one spark of intensity on a struggling roster, was erased. Her season was over.
And it looked like Stephanie White is extremely emotional after this hard-fought game. Sophie Cunningham family is extremely pissed off.
Sophie's sister Lindsay and her mom Paula. At WNBA, maybe you should focus less on fining players for commenting on your poor officiating and more about hiring officials that are able to call a consistent game, protect your athletes.
But as trainers rushed to her side, the physical pain on the court was only half the story. The other half was pure, unfiltered rage, and it erupted online almost immediately. Sophie Cunningham's family went public, and they weren't holding back. Her sister, Lindsay, put the entire league on notice, firing off a message directly at the WNBA. She wrote that maybe the league should focus less on fining players for speaking out and more on hiring officials who can actually protect the athletes. It was a direct shot at the league's priorities. Sophie's mother, Paula, was even more blunt. She aimed her fury squarely at Bria Hartley, calling her a disgruntled player who has trouble everywhere she goes and plays out of control. When a player's family is that vocal, you know things have reached a breaking point. And they weren't just defending their own, they were exposing a problem the entire league has tried to ignore.
It's just emotional, guys. I'm hella mad. Hartley need to be suspended on a major level completely. Probably at this point, she's more dirtier than DJ Carrington.
And Sophie's mother, Paula. Hartley is a disgruntled player having trouble everywhere she goes. She's playing mean and plays out of control.
Their anger was aimed squarely at one person for a reason. Bria Hartley isn't just another aggressive player. She's rapidly building a reputation as the WNBA's most notorious enforcer. This incident with Sophie wasn't a one-off. It was just the latest entry on a rapidly growing rap sheet of dangerous plays. Earlier this year, she was seen yanking Angel Reese out of the air by her ponytail in a move that looked more like something from WWE SmackDown than a basketball game. Just days before the Sophie incident, she was involved in another ugly scene where she pulled Becca Allen by the head and slammed her to the floor. The league is filled with tough players, but Hartley's actions have started to look less like aggressive basketball and more like a deliberate attempt to injure her opponents. With a history like that, the collision with Sophie started to look less like a coincidence and more like a terrifying pattern.
They wanted to hurt Sophie. They made it their business to hurt Sophie, and that's exactly what they did, was hurt Sophie, and I'm hella mad.
It's a patella injury. Normally, people will hold higher in their knee if it's a knee ligament injury. It looks like she might have either ruptured her patella.
This disaster didn't happen in a bubble. It was the defining moment of the Indiana Fever's season from *ELL. People aren't just calling their season bad. They're calling it a horror movie, a train wreck in slow motion. Before Sophie was even injured, they were getting blown out, proving once again the team is fundamentally broken. And that's what makes her loss so devastating. Sophie wasn't just a role player, she was the team's defensive anchor and its emotional leader. She was the one player who consistently showed fight, the one who would stand up for Caitlyn Clark when no one else would. She was the backbone of a team that desperately needed one. Now that backbone has been snapped, leaving a roster already in shambles to fend for itself.
Sophie did not deserve any of that happened to her today, and it is very, very unfortunate, man.
Sophie Cunningham out for the year. How can this team continue to survive? We bring in Ari McDonald because of injuries, and who would have thought? Caitlyn Clark would be out most of the year. Sophie Cunningham will have a season-ending injury.
And while one of their toughest players was carried off the court, their biggest star was nowhere to be seen. The ghost of Caitlyn Clark hangs over this entire franchise. The so-called savior of the league has been sidelined with her own injury for what feels like an eternity, missing over 75% of the season. At this point, the question is no longer when will Caitlyn Clark return, but why would she? Why would she risk her monumental career by stepping back into this chaotic environment? She's watching from the sidelines as her teammates are physically targeted, as the officiating fails to protect anyone, and as the team collapses under the weight of its own dysfunction. The league's most hyped rookie, its biggest ever star, is essentially a bystander to a demolition derby.
I told you guys this girl was a dirty player. And that's all she did today was show how dirty she is. This is unfortunate. I don't know how the Indiana Fever...
Ultimately, the failure to protect its brightest stars falls on one entity, the WNBA itself. After Sophie's injury, fans weren't just blaming Bria Hartley, they were blaming a league that has allowed this culture of dangerous play to fester. Where are the suspensions for repeat offenders? Where is the accountability for officials who consistently miss blatant and dangerous fouls? The situation has gotten so ridiculous that fans are now openly calling for a civil rights investigation into the league's officiating, claiming there's a clear bias and a failure to apply rules fairly. When your fans are so disgusted that they're demanding federal-level investigations, you know you have a crisis. This isn't just about bad calls anymore. It's about a complete and total loss of faith in the integrity of the league and its ability to keep its players safe.
She is a dirty, dirty player. She pulled Angel Reese out of air by her ponytail. Angel Reese is ready to fight. Just last game, I think 2 days ago.
Reality, because she is somebody's daughter, she is somebody's sister, and this is just unfortunate. And those of you who don't think a civil rights investigation need to be brought upon this league is tripping. This civil rights investigation...
But it gets even darker. This wasn't Sophie Cunningham's first major injury this season. In a chilling twist of fate, this was her second. And both times, the injury happened while playing against the exact same team, the Connecticut Sun. At some point, you have to ask if that's just a coincidence or something more sinister. Once is a tragedy, twice against the same opponent starts to look like a pattern. Is there a target on her back whenever she faces this team? Or is the entire Fever franchise so cursed that the basketball gods themselves are conspiring against them? Either way, it stretches the definition of bad luck to its absolute breaking point, and it's a detail that hasn't gone unnoticed by furious fans.
I don't know if it's her knee. I don't know if it's her Achilles, the way she was kind of dragging her foot. I don't know. But Bria Hartley has had dirty plays all season. But you got to know who we're talking about.
Lexi Hull hit a big three that was the dagger at the end. Aaliyah Boston, 7 of 13, 14 points, 13 boards, a double-double there, added 5 assists.
When a league fails this spectacularly, the fight doesn't stay on social media. It moves to the courthouse. Whispers are growing louder that Sophie Cunningham and her family might be exploring legal action, and they wouldn't be the first. This season has already seen legal issues tied to Caitlyn Clark's name, setting a dangerous precedent for the WNBA. This is the ultimate nightmare scenario for Commissioner Cathy Engelbert. It's no longer just a PR problem, it's a potential legal and financial catastrophe. Lawsuits would mean depositions, discovery, and a public airing of all the league's dirty laundry regarding player safety and officiating standards. The WNBA isn't just facing angry fans anymore, it's facing the very real threat of being put on trial.
Do you think the refs called any fouls? No, they didn't. These refs are clowns. These referees are clowns.
This all leads back to one simple question. What kind of game is the WNBA even selling anymore? Fans are openly accusing the league of allowing rugby and UFC moves to become standard practice. You see players getting mugged 75 feet from the basket, hit in the head with no call, and slammed to the floor in plays that have nothing to do with basketball. And it's not just one or two teams. Stars across the entire league are dropping like flies from injuries caused by this out-of-control physicality. It seems the WNBA is so desperate to market a tough, gritty product that it has completely lost control, sacrificing the health and careers of its most valuable assets in the process. This doesn't look like professional basketball anymore. It looks like a war of attrition.
In the beginning of this game, Sophie Cunningham is bringing the ball up the floor. She gets mugged, hit upside the head, knocked to the floor while dribbling the ball up the floor, 75 feet away from the rim.
And if you think the other players stepped up to fill the void, you'd be wrong. The final box score tells a misleading story. Yes, Kelsey Mitchell exploded for 34 points, but it was a desperate one-woman show that screamed of a team with no offensive system. Aaliyah Boston put up a double-double, but her numbers felt hollow in a game where the team looked lost. Even Lexi Hall, who hit a big three-pointer late in the game, was practically invisible for the other 95% of the time she was on the court. That's the problem with this Fever team. They have pieces, but no heart, no cohesion, and no identity, all the things Sophie Cunningham brought to the floor. Her absence exposed the fact that this roster is just a collection of stats, not a team.
Cathy Engelbert, wake the hell up. Half of your league is hurt now. Who would have thought? How do the Indiana Fever? Bria Hartley, you are a dirty, low-down dog of a player, you.
But make no mistake, this isn't just an Indiana Fever problem. It's an epidemic that has swept across the entire WNBA. It feels like every single week, another star player is added to the injury report. This season has turned into a war zone, with top-tier talent getting sidelined left and right. The league is losing its most marketable players at an alarming rate, and it's a direct result of the dangerous on-court environment that the officials have allowed to fester. This isn't just a string of bad luck, it's a systemic failure. The very foundation of the league is cracking as its biggest names are forced to watch from the sidelines, victims of a product that has prioritized aggression over safety.
Wonder why there's so many goddamn injuries all over the league, because you are allowing people to play rugby and football and do UFC moves in the middle of a basketball game.
The timing for this crisis couldn't be worse. The WNBA is in the middle of a historic boom, fueled by the Caitlyn Clark effect, that brought millions of new fans to the sport. But what are those new fans seeing? They tuned in to watch breathtaking skill and historic talent, and instead, they're getting a weekly highlight reel of brutal takedowns and season-ending injuries. The league had a golden opportunity to capture a new generation of viewers, but it's squandering it by allowing its product to devolve into chaos. Commissioner Cathy Engelbert is sitting on a potential goldmine, but her inaction is threatening to burn the whole thing to the ground before it ever has a chance to grow. And here is the ultimate bitter irony in this whole tragic saga. The Indiana Fever technically won the game. After all the chaos, the injury, and the outrage, the final score was 99-93 in overtime. But it was a victory in name only. It was a hollow win that felt more like a funeral. They may have gotten the points, but they lost their enforcer, their leader, and any shred of hope they had left for turning their disastrous season around. Sophie Cunningham's season is over. A player with a dirty history walks free. The Indiana Fever are in shambles, and the WNBA is facing a historic crisis of trust, With the league in chaos and its stars being taken out one by one, the only question left is, should Caitlyn Clark even risk stepping back onto the court for a team and a league that can't seem to protect its own?